for the gross body and subtle body is the causal body. Then the natural question would come, what is the cause for the causal body? Now, if you trace back, the cause for the causal body is its previous dissolution, previous big crunch led to the causal body. Then how that causal body come? Because the previous big bang, previous big crunch, previous big bang, previous big crunch. So the cause for the causal body is beginningless. That is the cause. We all know the gross body is evident to oneself and it also evident to the person around. In other words, I can perceive my gross body is perceptible. Likewise, the objects around the gross body of other person is also perceptible. That we studied earlier. When it comes to the subtle body, my subtle body is perceptible to myself, perceptible in terms of knowing and awareing that I have a mind, an intellect, and what is in my subtle body, I only know. The subtle body of the other person is imperceptible. You remember I gave an example that in the East, it's very difficult to understand a girl's mind. Subtle body is only self-evident and it's not evident to others. Causal body is not only, it's not self-evident to myself. In other words, your causal body is not perceptible to you yourself and it will not be perceptible to others as well. It's like a tree asking itself, where is the seed I came from? This seed is the tree already. The seed had already become the tree and the tree cannot ask to find out where the seed it came from, to locate or perceive the seed. Likewise, a human being, if you want to know where is my causal body, this gross body and subtle body is the causal body in manifest condition. That potential condition is already manifested now. So you cannot ask where is my causal body. This is your causal body. The state is that causal body in its expressed condition or manifest condition. So this is another nature of the causal body. What happens at the state of gross body and subtle body, we talked about subject and object, you as an individual, the gross body, subtle body as a subject, the things, the people around, the objects around, the universes around are object. So only when the subject and object exist, there is a possibility of gaining knowledge through which with your organs of perception, you take in stimuli, your mind, intellect, memory, ego reacts and you respond back to the world. In this process, there is a possibility of gaining knowledge. So that can happen only when your subtle body and gross body work in tandem. Moment this gross body and subtle body goes into the unmanifest condition, that is the causal body state, it gets into a state of total ignorance, isn't it? Because there is no way the manifestation of mind or intellect or the gross body, or there is no subject-object relationship at the state of unmanifest. There is no subject-object combination in the state of causal body. So it's a state of total ignorance. I'm sure you will agree with this logic. Now, if that be so, if that is state of total ignorance, you can also agree it's a state of ignorance of infinity as well. That particular state of causal body is a state of total ignorance equal to total ignorance of infinity, or total ignorance of the manifested world. That's the state they are into. So again, come back to how to end the state of causal body, how to get out of the cycle of birth and death. You see, from the point of total ignorance is equal to total ignorance of infinity. So when you gain the knowledge of infinity, the total ignorance of infinity will be eliminated or destroyed. When that ignorance will be destroyed when you capture infinity. In other words, end of ignorance of infinity equal to end of causal body. Gaining knowledge of infinity equal to end of causal body. Continuing with the nature of causal body, we earlier described its state of total ignorance. It is also another nature of the causal body is it is indescribable, indefinable, or cannot define. That's a state of no definition. That's what singularity, we call it state of no information. So when it is in the state of, why it is said it cannot be defined, because it cannot come under, you cannot state the causal body either existent, or it cannot come under non-existent. It's a state of total ignorance, we saw. From this state of ignorance is always compared to darkness. Now if you analyze darkness as such, particularly in a room, if it is a room is filled with few objects, if the room is completely dark, moment you introduce light in the dark room, darkness vanishes into nothing, or darkness is destroyed. In normal situation, any substance that it is destroyed, it will leave some remnants. But it appears darkness went into nothing. So you cannot prove darkness as a positive substance. So you can call darkness as non-existent. But in experience, it exists. In other words, you can experience darkness as you enter the room and there is no light. You experience darkness. You see the object. There are objects, but those objects are covered in darkness. Experientially, it's a wrong usage of English. You experience darkness. But moment you introduce light, it seems like a non-existent entity, darkness. Likewise, the state of causal body is indescribable. That's one of the nature. Now comparing it to darkness, the state of total ignorance, the state of the causal body being in a state of total ignorance. However long, we also know, however long the darkness is in a cave, for example. If the cave is uninhabited for millions of years, it's being dark for so many millions of years. Doesn't matter. Moment you introduce a small spark of light, the darkness disappears. Likewise, moment you gain the knowledge of infinity, otherwise capture infinity, however long you are ignorant, however long you have gone through the cycle of birth and death, instantaneously you will put an end to that total ignorance. So we all know for the gross body and subtle body is the causal body. Then the natural question would come, what is the cause for the causal body? Now, if you trace back, the cause for the causal body is its previous dissolution, previous big crunch led to the causal body. Then how that causal body come? Because the previous big bang, previous big crunch, previous big bang, previous big crunch. So the cause for the causal body is beginningless. That is the cause. Now, this is one way to understand. There is another way to understand how this beginningless thing came about. Now I am going to introduce another subtle concept. Again, this we are going to discuss in much detail, but since we have gone to this extent of analysis of causal body, I thought let me introduce this one more concept. Now you all know it's a state of total ignorance. We also derived, if it is a state of total ignorance, it is also a state of total ignorance of infinity. Right? Now you keep that. Ignorance of infinity, you keep that aside. I'm going to give an example. Consider in a twilight, a 6 feet rope is lying in a corner. Okay, 6 feet rope lying in a corner, around 2 or 3 inches thick. It's a coiled rope. In the twilight, a kid coming back to his home after watching Anaconda movie. Because it's twilight, he knows something is there, but he projects a snake there because it is twilight condition. Now he sees a snake where actually a rope is lying there. What you can understand is the qualities of the rope and the qualities of the snake are similar, isn't it? So for that particular boy, he is ignorant of the rope, he projects a snake. Why he projected a snake is because he is ignorant of the fact that there lies a rope. Now I'm asking you a question. How did the ignorance of the rope came about for that boy? For that boy, how did the ignorance of the rope came about? What is the reason? One reason is he is not having knowledge of the rope at that point in time because the condition is twilight condition. But how the ignorant has come about, I'm sure you would appreciate this logic. The ignorance of the rope is brought about in the first place because there exists a rope. If there was no rope lying there, what is the possibility of ignorance of the rope? No. Because there exists a rope, the possibility of not understanding the rope as a rope is inherent in the rope. Right? Likewise, I earlier introduced the concept of consciousness, and consciousness is an infinite principle. We are going to discuss that in detail. Just for the time being, to equate it to this example, there exists infinite consciousness principle. If that infinite consciousness principle exists, if it is infinite, it's all pervading. If that exists, the possibility of not understanding the infinite as an infinite exists inherently in the infinite principle. Because an object lies, the possibility of not understanding the object lies in the object itself, right? So there exists infinite consciousness because of its existence, and that infinite consciousness principle is all pervading. The possibility of not understanding the infinite as infinite exists in the infinite. That not understanding of infinite is the total ignorance of infinite. So the ignorance of infinite, the potential ignorance of infinite lies in the infinite. You can replay this again with this rope snake example. This is just only a speck of this concept I have just unloaded on you. We are going to analyze in a very, very, very systematic way when we are discussing the concept of infinity, consciousness, creation further. Remember, we are still studying, analyzing the causal body. Now, having discussed so much about causal body, it will be a natural curiosity what that causal body could be. Is there any way that I can find that nature of it or experience it? Still, there will be some curiosity will be lurking around. The natural way how to go to the state of causal body is go back to Big Bang. Ask James Webb Telescope to probe further beyond the point of Big Bang, or wait for the entire universe to go into big crunch. Both are not possible. The third possibility is destroy the entire universe right now. Is it possible? Only in Hollywood movies it's possible. One army guy will ask, Mr. President, let's go and nuke the universe. It's all can happen only in movies. But all these three is not possible. Either you go back now to the point of Big Bang, neither you can go into the future, neither you can destroy the universe right now. However, to appease the curiosity, there is another way to have a glimpse of what the causal body is. You know, when you want to purchase a real estate apartment, you go to the developer's exhibition. They would build a small miniature structure of the entire apartment complex project. There you saw tennis court, 2 small toys playing tennis, then swimming pool, park, kids play area, then this 40-story building. All that in small 10 square feet model. Likewise, there is a small way to experience or to get a glimpse of the causal body. Now, we define causal body is the state where the gross body and the subtle body go to a total state of unmanifest. There is something in our life's experience. This happens for a brief period of time. Obviously, naturally, you all know it's deep sleep state of experience. When you go to sleep, I mean deep sleep in the sense dreamless sleep. When you go to deep sleep, you imagine that state. That state is similar to all the attributes or qualities that the nature of causal body we discussed. All of it will fit in a minuscule form in the state of deep sleep. So, with deep sleep state of experience, you can have a glimpse of the state of the causal body, how it could have been before Big Bang, how it will be after Big Crunch. So deep sleep state of experience is one small minuscule state of the causal body, you can say. In the analysis of causal body, it was inevitable to bring in the topic of creation. So having only minor aspects of creation we discussed, having touched down upon some of those points, I thought I would bring in another point so that if you understand this point that I'm going to say, it will be very handy when we get to the topic of creation. Now we were analyzing human composition as one individual. We analyzed the human compositions, gross body, subtle body and causal body. Now, as far as the gross body, we all know this gross body and the inert matter and the observable universe. Now, how do you account for the subtle body of other human beings and other beings in planet Earth? I have a gross body, there is a subtle body for me, right? Likewise, all the viewers, you have a gross body, you have a subtle body. All living beings has its subtle body. All the inert objects don't have subtle body, but they have the power of inertia. For them to exist as an inert object, there is a subtle power of inertia behind them, which we are going to discuss again, creation topic. But as of now, we understand there is the subtle power behind my subtle body, that is my subtle body, your subtle body, the entire living being's subtle body. How do you account for? What you see is the observable, perceptible gross universe and the gross body. We said the subtle body is only self-evident to me, it's not perceptible to others. So the combination of the entire subtle body of all human beings, 8 billion subtle body, and all living beings, I said trillions and trillions. In the introduction class, I said the number of living beings in planet Earth is trillions and trillions when compared to the 8 billion human population. How do you account for the subtle body of the entire living beings in planet Earth? This is one side. Another side, we have the observable universe and it has billions of galaxies, or I don't know, trillions of galaxies. Each will host its own Goldilocks zones, one solar system, one Goldilocks zone. Innumerable suns. There will be innumerable Goldilocks zones. We don't know. Just because we don't know, it doesn't mean it's not there. There will be, or maybe or may not be, I'm not getting into that discussion. But there is a big possibility of other beings living out there. Take into account the subtle body of those living beings. All put together forms a congregation of subtle bodies. From what you see, I can see my gross body, I can see gross matter, perceptible. What you see is a perceptible gross matter, perceptible universe, perceptible gross universe. Now you can guess where I am coming to. There is an imperceptible subtle universe, corresponding subtle universe for the perceptible gross universe. There will be a subtle universe. I'm sure you will be able to agree to this point. If you agree for the potential existence, it's not even potential existence, it is inferable existence of subtle universe. Just as your intellect validates existence of your subtle body, if you accept that, there is no way you can deny the fact there exists a subtle universe. Subtle universe is combination of the mind and intellect of all human beings, the mind of all living beings except human beings, because other beings don't have an intellect. And the subtle body is made of subtle matter. Subtle matter is combination of pure state of matter. There is a huge gap that is left, that is not analyzed by the scientific community, is the subtle universe in its entirety. That apart, where the subtle universe coalesce into, settle down into, your gross body, subtle body goes into the container of your causal body, right? Now collect all the congregation of all the subtle body and gross body at the time of big crunch or total dissolution. They all have to settle into the respective causal body. The combination of all causal bodies put together in the known universe, in the unknown universe, or the observed universe or unobserved universe, all put together forms the causal universe. So human composition analysis, we have a gross body, subtle body, causal body. Likewise, all I want you to understand at this point in time is there is a gross universe which you agree, there is a subtle universe which you will have to agree, and those two will condense into its unmanifest form. We can call it as causal universe. So you just make a note of this point. With this, finally the analysis of subtle body, analysis of causal body is over.